All right, let's dive into a skill that truly separates the pros from the amateurs in project management: mastering time. Honestly, it's the bedrock of any successful project, but getting it right, that's a whole other story. It's a real discipline. By the end of this, you're going to have a complete professional framework for building time estimates that are not just realistic, but also defensible and strategic. So, let's get started. So think about it for a second. We've all been there, right? On that one project, the one that kicks off with all this energy and optimism but ends in a mad dash, working weekends and blowing past the launch date. It's a universal pain point. And, it's really easy to blame poor execution or bad luck. But the real culprit? It's often hiding in plain sight right at the very beginning: a bad time estimate. The problem isn't always that we work too slow, it's that we plan way too fast. And this, right here, is the fundamental mindset shift. The absolute best consultants and project managers out there, they know they don't have a crystal ball. Their secret isn't some psychic ability. It's a rigorous, repeatable process. They treat estimation not as a wild guess, but as an exercise in systematically breaking down and accounting for all the unknowns. The goal isn't to pull one perfect number out of thin air. It's to build a credible, well-understood plan that actually acknowledges reality. So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off by defining the challenge itself, then we'll get into the critical intelligence you need to gather up front. After that, we're going to open up the Estimator's Toolkit and look at 5 key techniques. Then we'll tackle risk head-on. We'll wrap up by defining the professional deliverables you need to produce, and finally, we'll see how this all changes in the world of Agile. Okay, first things first. You simply cannot estimate in a vacuum. It's impossible. A professional, solid estimate is always built on a foundation of good data. So before you even think about putting a number down, you've got to do your homework. This is the intelligence gathering phase, and let me tell you, it is absolutely non-negotiable if you want an estimate that's going to hold up under pressure. So this framework right here breaks all that data down into 4 clear, manageable buckets. And this comes straight from the project management body of knowledge. First, your project management plan. Think of this as the rule book for the project. Second, your project documents. This is the real nitty-gritty detail of the work. Third, you've got what we call enterprise environmental factors, or EEFs. These are basically the operating conditions, things like market data or your company's own productivity metrics. And finally, organizational process assets, or OPAs. This is your secret weapon, all the juicy historical data from past projects, lessons learned, and templates. Now, within all of those documents, there are 3 that you absolutely, positively cannot ignore. Number 1, the activity list. And I don't mean a high-level goal. I mean the granular, broken-down list of every single action that needs to get done. Without it, you're flying blind. Number 2, resource calendars. An estimate is totally meaningless if you don't know who is actually available. This is what tells you your lead developer is taking a 2-week vacation right in the middle of a critical phase. And third, the risk register. This is your list of known unknowns, all the things that could go wrong and blow with your timeline. Seriously, ignoring these 3 is like trying to build a house with no blueprint, no crew, and no weather forecast. It's just not going to work. Okay, so you've gathered your intel. Now it's time to open up the toolkit. The PMBOK guide lays out a fantastic set of proven industry-standard techniques. And these aren't just different ways to guess. They are very distinct tools, each designed for a specific job. A real pro knows exactly which tool to pull out and when. So let's open up the box and take a look. We're going to start with 2 foundational approaches that are basically polar opposites. First up, on the left, you have analogous estimating. This is your quick and dirty top-down estimate. You look at a similar project your team did in the past and say, hey, that one took 6 months, so this one probably will too. It's fast, it's cheap, but it's not super accurate. It's perfect for those really early stages when a stakeholder just needs a ballpark number. Then on the right, you have the complete opposite, bottom-up estimating. This is where you take that super detailed activity list, you estimate every single tiny task, and then you add them all up. It's slow, it's detailed, but it is way more accurate. So the key here is the classic trade-off. Do you need speed or do you need accuracy? Next up in the toolkit is parametric estimating. This is where we get a bit more quantitative, a little more scalable. So instead of comparing one entire project to another, you find a statistical link between a specific variable and the effort it takes. Just look at the example here. If you know from past data that your team can install, say, 25 meters of cable an hour, and your current project needs 1,000 meters, well, a simple multiplication gives you a highly defensible estimate of 40 hours. It's incredibly powerful as long as your data is solid. Now we come to one of my personal favorites, because it doesn't run from uncertainty. It runs right at it. I'm talking about three-point estimating. Instead of chasing that one single perfect number, which, let's be honest, is super fragile, you create a range. You're acknowledging right from the start that, hey, things might go great, or they might go terribly wrong. This simple shift in thinking is a huge step toward building a truly resilient project plan. And this is how it works. It's actually brilliantly simple. For any task, you come up with three numbers. First, the optimistic estimate. What if the sun is shining and everything goes perfectly? Then, the most likely, what's your realistic gut feel number? And finally, the pessimistic estimate. What if Murphy's Law shows up and everything that can go wrong does? The simplest formula, what's known as a triangular distribution, just averages those three together. And boom, you get a weighted, much more probable duration that is already factored in risk. And don't just take my word for it. Here's the key takeaway, straight from the source. The real magic of the three-point estimate isn't just the final number. It's that it, and I quote, clarifies the range of uncertainty. You now have a documented best case, worst case, and expected case. And this lets you have a much smarter, more sophisticated conversation with your stakeholders about risk, which is exactly what we're talking about next. So, we've admitted that uncertainty is real. Now, how do we professionally manage it in our schedule? The answer is something called reserve analysis. This is the formal process of building time buffers into your schedule to account for risk. And let me be really clear here. This is not just random padding or sandbagging. It's a calculated, documented decision based on the specific risks you've already identified. This chart shows you exactly what a professional estimate looks like. It's made of two parts. That big slice, that's your base estimate. That's the number you got using one of your tools, like three-point or bottom-up. But then you add that second, smaller slice, the contingency reserve. This is a specific chunk of time you set aside to deal with the known unknowns from your risk register. It's the buffer that saves your project when one of those risks actually happens. So, after all this work, what do you actually hand over? Well, a professional estimate isn't just a number you scrawl on a whiteboard. It's a comprehensive package with two distinct, absolutely critical deliverables, what the PMBOK guide calls the outputs of this whole process. The first deliverable is, of course, the duration estimates themselves. But look closely at these examples. A pro rarely gives a single number. It's expressed as a range, like 2 weeks plus or minus 2 days. Or even better, probabilistically. There's a 15% probability this will take longer than 3 weeks. This communicates uncertainty in a clear, quantitative way, and that leads to much better decision-making. And this second deliverable is just as important. The basis of estimates is the document where you show your work. It creates total transparency into your process. You state exactly which methodology you used, you list every single assumption you made, you outline the constraints, and you explicitly state your confidence level and the key risks. This document is your best friend when 6 months down the road, a stakeholder asks why something is late. It turns a potential argument into a calm, objective discussion about the original plan. Now, so far, we've pretty much been talking in the context of traditional or predictive project management, where you try to plan everything out right at the start. But as we all know, the world has shifted heavily towards more adaptive, agile approaches. So how does our whole philosophy on estimation change in that kind of environment? This slide nails the fundamental split. In the predictive world, you try to lock down the entire plan from day one. The goal is to create a detailed baseline and then just stick to it. Estimation is this massive, front-loaded job. Agile completely flips that on its head. It embraces the fact that we can't possibly know everything up front, so it uses a high-level forecast for the long term, but only does the really granular, detailed estimating for the work that's immediately ahead, usually just the next 2-week cycle. Estimation becomes this continuous, just-in-time thing you do, not a one-time event. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What's the real goal here? Is it to produce a single, supposedly perfect estimate, or is it to create a well-understood range of uncertainty? Because one of those is just a guess pretending to be a fact, the other is a powerful strategic tool that leads to smarter decisions and, ultimately, way more successful projects. The best in the business have already made their choice. The only question is, which one will you choose? Thanks for tuning in.